All right, so I'm Stacy Thomas with the Hub. I use she, her pronouns, and my colleague and I are going to talk to you about building your community team. We took some liberties with our session because we had a co-presenter at one point, and then they backed out, so then we changed a little bit what we're talking about, but hopefully you guys will find this enjoyable. I'm going to let Beth introduce herself.
We didn't change our title too much. I put it there in really teeny tiny letters, so it would seem like we still had the exact same title as what y'all signed on for. My name is Beth Thompson. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm thrilled to be here with you all. I joined the Hub nearly 1 year ago, so I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary with the Hub, and that means I get to lean on Stacy really heavily for anything I don't know, or call on one of my Hub colleagues in the room and have them join the interactivity.
Yeah, so I have been at the Hub a little bit longer. I'm right at my 4-year mark with the Hub, and so I came to the Hub after working in my own community as a volunteer. Actually, when Ray Moeller was still, just slumming it as a community volunteer and didn't work at Brownfields. Ray and I used to run the streets of Richwood together, trying to redevelop buildings and stuff. And we still have them roped in to that a little bit. Come on in, guys. Have a seat. Have a seat. So before we get started, we're going to do a fun icebreaker. But also before we get started, so I'm as you can see, community coaching programs coordinator at the Hub. I just call myself a community coach because I work directly on the ground with communities. My mom doesn't believe that I have a real job. And so she constantly is like, people ask me what you do, and I say, you go talk to people. So we're gonna take a selfie real quick so I can send it to my mom and prove to her that I have a real job, and also use it on our socials later. So I'm gonna ask Beth to come over here so she can get in. And we're gonna get all you guys in too. So you gotta smile.
Trying to make sure I turn this off because I don't want to cover.
So you guys are going to be all front and center in my attempts to prove to my mom I am a real adult and have a job. Okay. All right. Everyone smiling? All right. Thank you guys for your help with that. And folks, just keep rolling in. All right. So we are going to do a fun icebreaker. So we were setting a little bit this morning. So I'm going to ask 3 people. If you've had something awesome happen to you in the last 24 hours that you want to share, raise your hand right now. We're going to call in a couple people. Okay, I need a couple more volunteers before I let George talk. Someone's had something awesome. Come on.
What's that?
If you've had something awesome in the last 24 hours that you're willing to share with our group, it's going to be, we can get 48.
Oh, well, we'll say something then. On the tour.
Okay, hold on. We gotta share the rules. So if you're willing to share, keep your hand up real quick. Okay, so we have 4 people. We're gonna stick with these 4 people. So this is an activity we do at some of our events. It's an improv activity. We usually put people in a circle. It would take too long to make everyone do that. So we're having an improvised version today. I'm improving the improv. So we'll start with Norman, and then when he says his thing, we're all gonna say, that's awesome. Okay, so go ahead, Norman.
All right, do I have to stand up?
No.
Okay. Okay, so what was awesome was, y'all supposed to say that.
No, tell us what happened.
On the tour, I found out and discovered, but I learned that the father of West Virginia, who was the governor of the new Virginia at the time, was here in Wilmington. I didn't know that.
West Virginia's birthplace here in Wilmington. Okay, over here, you were willing to share?
Yeah, we nailed it. Mobile workshop yesterday. It was just like almost awe-inspiring learning about the methods of revitalization. With just a food, all of that, his unit, and everything. And I think it was just really inspiring. It was just really cool and eye-opening.
All right.
For the reception last month, my guy that works with me at the Brownfield Center and I, we drove around a little bit and we saw 2 bucks fighting.
In a weird way. All right, okay, Tina, one more, and then we'll let Bill, and then we'll finish this up.
So, kind of like George's, I drove 4.5 hours last night. I didn't leave Hinton until 7:30. Got here at midnight and I only saw one deer on my way.
All right, Bill, you can bring it home when that's awesome.
Okay, well, I, started the day in Pittsburgh yesterday, I got to present 10 grants to our board of trustees, they were all approved. So that was a great feeling, yes. And, then last night, I didn't know that below the glass door, there was a museum until we were all there sweating last night. And that Sweeney Punch Bowl was the most amazing story I've heard out of West Virginia in a very long time. If you didn't take the time to go see the giant punch bowl, it's the biggest punch bowl ever made, 5 feet tall, 235 pounds, can hold 5 gallons of liquid. Sat on a guy's grave for 74 years before they bought it and put it in the museum.
All right, thank you all for doing that. That's awesome. It's just a fun way to, get the energy flowing. And Beth and I want this to be a fun, interactive presentation. So, thank you all for joining us this morning and, all right. Okay, so, well, let me back up and say, we're talking about building your community team and how the hub can help. And so, part of this is, where the hub's been and where the hub's going and what your all's opportunities are to engage with the hub as a community member or as part of a community program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where the hub has been. So the hub's, we're 14 now. So we have been doing this for a little bit, but we're still, figuring some things out. So these are some fun pictures from years past. And some of the things we've done. So, the hub is kind of in our teenage years right now. We're growing and experimenting and testing our boundaries, maybe a little bit like teenagers do. If you've ever parented a teenager, we've learned a lot over the last 14 years. And like every teenager, we've had some awkward moments, like Hubapalooza. We don't do that anymore. This is probably why I'm not sure what was going on there. People were like throwing balls back and forth at each other. We've had some programs that we don't do anymore or have evolved, like turn this town around. We even had, we've changed our look. We've shed our baby face and we have a new look. That's our old logo. We have a new logo. So, we have changed a little bit. You might have noticed our organization has grown a little bit too. And so that's, in the where we're going, and I'm going to let Beth talk about that.
I'm trying to stay an adequate distance away so no squeaking happens. So it's not that I don't like Stacy or that I don't want to be close, but with 2 microphones, I want your ears to be intact at the end of this session. So yeah, if I lose my microphone, I have a really big mouth, so I'll fill the room, I promise. So this information comes from our impact report that we do each year, and there's some exciting numbers on here. We pulled some highlights off of this. One of the things you'll probably note right away is our staff has grown. It has doubled plus a little bit more, and we are currently searching for a CFO. So we're going to be adding another staff member in that way, and then we are also adding another Vista lead this month. So that number will get a little higher. I started at the end of last September and a whole bunch of people have joined since then. So even just in the last year, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth with our staff, and you're allowed to sit up here. You don't have to sit in the back as you're coming in. You can feel free to come closer. I feel like I'm teaching class again. You know what they say about students who sit in the front of the room. So being a student, feel free. Anyway, our staff has grown a bunch, and that brings lots of great energy and new skill sets and exciting things, and a lot of good energy to the hub. But as Stacy mentioned before, we're growing, and there are, thank you, some growing things we're learning from that growth as we go. Also, this year we expect to work in 27 plus communities. At the end of the year, we'll tally all that up, and our partners span organizations and individuals and people that are willing to work hand in hand with us and dive in and dig in and do this work. You can see there, we've leveraged last year over $6.8 million. One of the exciting things that I want to talk just a little bit about is the fact that we are also for the first time piloting our coaching model outside of West Virginia. So we are now coaching in addition to Richwood, West Virginia, in one of our programs called Building Resilient Economies in Coal Communities, BREC, because we all like an acronym. So in the BREC program, we've partnered with NACO, and we are coaching in Eastern Kentucky, Floyd County, Kentucky, and we are coaching in Perry County, Ohio. And we're also coaching a 4-county planning district in southwestern Virginia. So we're learning a lot about that, about what our model looks like outside of the state and how we may need to polish or tweak or modify as a result. So I'm gonna pass it back to Stacy.
Yeah, so as we said, the hub has changed. We were gonna name this entire thing Not Your Grandma's Hub, but we decided that was maybe a little too flashy. So, but we have changed a lot. We're not your grandma's hub anymore, but we do still love working with grandmas. They bring cookies to meetings a lot. We like that. So our work kind of has, we made this Venn diagram for what our work looks like, because over the last year, as we have grown and had new opportunities, we've kind of divided our internal teams into a couple different buckets. And so one of those big buckets is our coaching work, and the other big bucket is our systems work. And you guys kind of fall somewhere in the middle, because most communities and most community members overlap and have the opportunity to work with both. And so we're going to break this down a little bit more as we talk over the next few minutes or hour or so about what, you know, the difference is in our coaching work and our systems work. But you know, our coaching work is how many of you guys know the hub for our coaching work? Yeah, that's what we're most known for, or that's most visible. And that's still the foundation of the hub, and probably always will be. But we recognize that in our coaching work, we can't work with every person, we can't work with every community. And while we're helping individual communities, we're not looking at the systemic problems that lead to some of this. And so that's kind of where the systems work comes in. So I'll let Beth talk about systems. So in our big overarching hub thing, I lead all of our coaching program stuff, and Beth leads our systems. So that's how y'all got stuck with the two of us up here.
It's really interesting because Stacy and I have very different strengths too. So it didn't shock me when we came up with this presentation style. Systems work is nebulous. Systems work is hard. It can feel like nothing happens, and then all of a sudden a bunch of things happen. And with a system, I was thinking about this, like when I was telling myself, how am I going to talk about this? Like a system can be big, it can be little. You have to define the boundaries. You have to decide what your system is. And the hub has embedded into its bylaws, the hub has systems work threaded through our bylaws. And we have a two-pronged mission statement, if you will. And one part of that is coaching with our model in communities in a hands-on way. And then the other part of that is to improve the community development system in West Virginia, which is a very big lift. And, you know, the community development system, if you will, just thinking of that as a network of people engaged in community development work and what they are learning, and we have to connect and plug into that so we can find out what's bubbling up. We have to be willing to pivot rapidly. We have to be willing to not get too entrenched in doing things the same way things have always been done. And we have to be willing to be iterative and dive into all that. And our bylaws allow for that in a couple big ways. One is gaps analysis, filling need, like a need, when a need bubbles up, And really, it hinges on partnerships and building, and my title has partnerships coordinator in it, because systems work is in essence partnering and learning and meeting people and figuring out how they might be connected to something way down the line. Or maybe something tomorrow. So anyway, I love systems work, but it's always a little bit hard to like, define. But what Stacy and I are gonna do is we're gonna take, because the hub has a lot of projects. We have a lot of programs, a lot of projects, a lot of things we're working on. And we thought if we could start off with you all keeping in mind that two-prong, coaching and systems work, we're gonna highlight programs or projects. We're trying to call little things projects at the hub now. We're gonna highlight things we're working on that fit in those buckets. But please recognize that all of our work crosses, it crosses all of our values. So just because we're highlighting something, we're not claiming like this is the only program that does that. It's just we want you to see how thoughtful we are about doing both of this kind of work at the hub.
And I'll just say, if you guys. That talked too long, apparently. If you guys have questions throughout, you can raise your hand, we save some time at the end to answer questions. We got 2 minutes, but we do want this to be interactive. So one thing, we're gonna break this down a little bit more, but we just want you guys to understand, we're not willy-nilly at the hub, like everything, it might seem like that sometimes, but everything is like guided by our values in our work, and our core values. And we have 5 core values that we talk about a lot internally, and they really do define and lead our work. So for this presentation today, Beth and I are going to go through kind of each of these 5 core values and how we're living this value and how that means we show up in your community or the opportunity for you to engage with us. And so as Beth said, especially for our colleagues in the room, just raise your hand if you work for the hub and are in this room right now. So we do have some other hubbers in here. So real quick, we have Tina Allen, who is our grants compliance manager. We have a bunch of people back here at the same table. Alicia Allen, who, I don't know your exact title, Alicia.
Community Development Programs Coordinator.
Yeah. Brian.
Ryan, I'm the policy coordinator for both.
And Sherry James, I'm a coaching associate.
Yeah, so we do have several hub staff in here with us too, so the mic is really cutting out on me. So just keep in mind, as we talk about these programs, oh, I'm sorry, I totally missed Brianna. Peter's one of our board members. Peter's head was blocking me. So we also have Brianna Hickman, who's our CBRI. This keeps cutting out, and I didn't really want to use it anyway, so I'm just gonna talk louder. One of my kids is calling me because they can't follow mom's at a conference presenting today, so let me turn that off too. But so yeah, we're guided by our core values, and just because we're highlighting a value in a program that fits in it, as Beth said, doesn't mean that we don't feel like there's other programs or opportunities or values that align with that. But we're going to go ahead and start with our first one. And this is, we begin by building up leaders. This picture is of Mayor Ann Cavalier, who you probably, heard the story about Mayor Smithers in the opening keynote, and Greg Ingram, the mayor of Montgomery. The hub's core work is bringing forward new and unexpected leaders. That's, one of our core values in our coaching work. And so we really feel like this is an important value because there are a lot of people that can contribute to your community or to your programs that maybe have not been given the opportunity to show up in that space or have their voice heard. And so while this is a picture of 2 mayors, and it's so great when we get to work with city council people or county commissions, we believe in working with leaders who maybe haven't been seen in that capacity before. And so I, shared with you guys, I came to the hub after being a community volunteer, and I feel like, I'm kind of a living example of this. In my, one stoplight town, I was, at the time Ray and I, kind of got involved in this. I worked part-time for a community foundation. And I was a mom who, toted kids around, and then we got involved in HubCAP, and through that, we had some wins and realized that this was a good opportunity for me to continue to grow my leadership, and then an opportunity came to join the Hub. You don't have to join the Hub after you go through one of our programs. So I just want to make that caveat. Even though we're growing our staff, I don't know if we can hire everybody. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're completely fine.
Okay. But so yeah, this is, we really believe in building up leaders. I just need to move on to the next slide here. And so this is how we live this value. And so throughout this presentation, we'll have, coaching stuff is on the right. We should. And system stuff is on the left. That's gotta switch your notes. So we believe we live this value in a couple different ways. So obviously through all of our coaching work, but I'm going to focus on Kickstart, our Kickstart work. So how many of you guys have heard about Kickstart communities that the Hub offers? Okay, a couple people. So Kickstart communities is one of my babies at the Hub. I birthed it. It's still growing up a little bit. So it's a program we have that has a multi-pronged approach. It started, we offered some fellowships, and they were, 2-day fellowships. And as we were building out our fellowships to be a little bit more in-depth, COVID happened, and the Hub struggled with how we work with community members when we couldn't be in communities. So when we were virtual, it was harder to build relationships and build leaders, like we like to do. So we decided that our fellowships weren't enough, and we made this program called Kickstart. And Kickstart has 4 components. So we have an online learning platform. Has anyone utilized any of our online learning lessons? Okay, Tina's shaking her head. She came to the Hub after. This is how we lured her in through these fellowships, and then we started working at the Hub. So we offer, I think right now we have about 40 online lessons on our platform, and they're free. And if you just go to the Hub website and go to Get Involved Kickstart, it'll take you right to the online learning platform. We use Tutor LMS as our free learning platform. So it breaks down the different lessons, and they're self-paced. So you can go through them in a week or a month. And so there's one about building your community team, and it'll kind of lead you step by step. How would you build your community team if you wanted to start a dog park in your town and you didn't have a team around that? So, you could start with that. There's activities in there. We have a lesson about building a better business community, having, business leaders work together. So we have a bunch of different lessons that are part of our Kickstart program that are all free, and we're continuing to build out new lessons. So one of the things we have heard from a lot of people that aligns with one of our values we'll talk about later is building DEI into community work. So we're currently building out a lesson series for how community leaders can engage more DEI in their community work. So we're open to suggestions for lessons as well. So if you want, if you submit a lesson idea to me, then we can, follow up with that. Because we recognize it's kind of like a library that we're going to continue to add resources to. If you get our weekly hubbub that comes out on Tuesdays, you'll see there's a little plug for Kickstart in there in our online lesson platform. So you can check that out. We have the lessons like as beginner, intermediate, and we're starting to release some of the more advanced lessons now too. So this is a great opportunity for people that are just really getting started in community development or their community work to start with some of those early resources. The next thing we have is one of our fellowships, Champions for Change, which is our introductory or beginning fellowship. It's going on right now. And it's a skill building fellowship to give emerging leaders the tools to help them build a team, facilitate a meeting, and know how to, look for resources and connect with partners. Our more advanced fellowship we call Coaching for Transformation. It's a 9-month program. We only take 8 to 10 fellows in this program, so it's a lot more selective. And you work one-on-one with a coach for coaching around a project or idea and your own leadership development. So we utilize the leadership challenge for this fellowship. And there are 5 pillars of leadership and how they align with our core values. We also do immersive community experiences with this fellowship. So it's a hybrid. So we do some virtual and some in person. And we do that in our in-hub community so we can highlight the work as examples, because we're all about R&D, rip off and duplicate from other communities. So we want to give you guys those R&D opportunities. And as you can see, the application for this opens soon. So it could be a good opportunity for you guys to take part. The last part of Kickstart is our community conversations. And I bet a lot of you guys have been to a community conversation. We do these about once a month or so, typically at noon, on a variety of different topics. Our last one was around art and culture engagement. We've done how to tell your story, how to start a community garden. We do a lot, and all of our hub staff, we all take turns leading these, so you get to hear from a lot of different people. And so those are always free, and we offer those again about once a month or so at lunch. So we should have another one coming up. I don't think we're doing one in September, but we should have one coming up in October. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that a lot of our work, or all of our work in Kickstart, is it's funded by the Benetton Foundation, and it allows us to be able to offer these programs free or at a greatly reduced cost of what we would have to charge ordinarily. And so Kickstart is a really great opportunity for people who aren't part of a community team. So if you're trying to build your individual skills because you guys can't be part of a community program, or we haven't had an opportunity that fits your community, Kickstart can be your solution for that, because it's working directly with individuals. Now I'm going to let Beth talk about the systems aspect of this value.
I wasn't sure if my microphone was gonna turn on. Sounds a little odd to be on the microphone after Stacy wasn't, but it's, anyway. One of the examples we have at the hub for this value about building leadership, I feel like I'm speaking a little.
Yeah, I don't know what the feedback is. I think we can just, because it's.
I'll keep trying because I'm supposed to and I'm a rule follower, but it might not happen. All right, anyway, one of the things, it's squeaking at me. All right. Sorry about that. One of the things we have at the hub that we are excited about is our Community Collaborative Network, or CCN, which Alicia steers for us and convenes. And the Community Collaborative Network has a mission that is driven by collecting information from around the state and disseminating information back to communities for that network about topics that are that surround community development. And network work like this, that's a little redundant, but it can feel like it can be hard to learn what you don't know, so you're gathering that information and you're learning, and then all of a sudden there's something that clicks and you realize, wow, this theme keeps coming up over and over and we need to address it. And so this network, we hope, is a way that we can engage with partners all throughout the state involved in community engagement, where we can uplift local leaders and their voices. And the purpose really is to connect the public with those leaders and to uplift that work that's being done, provide an on-ramp for leaders. If they want to do community engagement or development work, it provides an on-ramp for them to get information about that. And the mission, or I guess the goals, involve building capacity, strengthening partnership, with an ultimate hope that we would have some policy initiatives and some policy change, and also increase funding throughout the state in those communities that are involved. And I don't have nearly as many Kickstart community things, so we're going to slide to the next slide.
Keep hitting the wrong button here. Right. So Beth, you're talking about this.
Awesome. I love this value. This is the value that brought me to the hub. I actually joined in on a community conversation, was really excited about it, thought the hub was doing this really cool stuff. And so the idea that we believe residents are subject matter experts. I'm a born and raised West Virginian, born in a very rural area. And one of the things through my life that felt wrong was that often experts would come in and tell communities what they needed, what their problems were. Everybody loves to hear what their problems are. We just all really enjoy that a lot. And then also throw solutions at them without that lived experience of being in the community and in the space and actually highlighting the asset. I love an asset approach as opposed to a deficit approach. And when I heard about the way the hub did its work and the value about residents being subject matter experts in West Virginia, about those issues, I wanted to be a part of it. So when a job came up, it was kind of ironic because I saw this job description that sounded like really hard to do and hard to define. And I thought I could do that. And my husband messaged me that same day because he also gets the newsletter and said, you need to apply for this job. I was like, well, I guess that's serendipitous. So the idea, and our programs have guidelines and they have some parameters, but there's always an inherent flexibility to hear what the community is saying, what the community members are saying, what the community voice is, and figure out how to implement that alongside those communities in a way that is honorable for what the community actually wants and be responsive to what the community needs are. We can go to the next one.
Yeah, so we live this value in a couple different ways. So in our coaching work, it's that we are grassroots, bottom up, in a way that invites everyone in a community to be involved. If you show up at a hub meeting in your community, your voice matters just as much as the mayor or the county commissioner, and you will have your chance to speak. We also believe that in order to do this, it means that we have to be in communities. The guy that changes my oil isn't really sure what I do. He just knows that I give him a lot of business because we're constantly driving places to get to communities. And we have to do that to be able to meet with residents and hear them and have them talk about their stories so we can empower them, for this change. And so this is kind of the core of our coaching work. And so when I first joined the hub, we had like 2 coaching programs, and now all across the bottom here, I ran out of room. I covered up a logo because we have so many. So I'm going to give you just a brief rundown of our coaching programs and then talk about the opportunities that are coming up. So our first coaching program, and probably the one you guys know us most for. Well, hold on. Has anyone been through a hub coaching program? I know a couple of people. Lisa was in HubCAP from Elkins. So that's the first one I'm going to talk about. HubCAP is our Communities of Achievement program. We're currently in the 5th iteration of this program. It's funded by USDA through a rural community development grant. And so right now we're working with 5 communities. There have been we've worked with over 25 communities through HubCAP, and we've seen communities have huge successes. But Cannon was one of our first HubCAP communities. They still have a weekly chat and chew that has been going on for 13 years, where it gives people every Thursday at noon in the Opera House at CJ Maggie's. People can show up, and that's when they get to have their input and their voice with HubCAP. So this is a program where we do technical assistance projects to help communities move things forward. I'm not saying this just because Lisa's here and from Elkins. I coached Elkins last year, and this project was one of my favorites that we've seen in HubCAP. They did a riverfront redevelopment project. I didn't realize there was a river in Elkins for like the first year or so that I was going there, because it's an underutilized asset, and they recognized that. And a riverfront development plan had been talked about for a long time in Elkins, but no one was willing to take the ownership of that. And then the HubCAP group said, yeah, we'll do that. And they held community engagement sessions, and our funding helped them work with a consulting firm that put together a 3-phase plan for their riverfront development. That's going to be super awesome. So that's, some of the things that we see in HubCAP. Accelerate West Virginia is our newest program. Well, it's not our newest program. It's one of our newer programs. it is part of the Act Now initiative, that was funded last year, through the, Build Back Better grants. And, so Accelerate, there's a lot of partners that work on this program. It's, in Southern West Virginia communities. There's like 26 counties. So right now they're working with 6 communities, in this program, and it's a planning program, to come up, with plans for community revitalization and climate mitigation. So, the spring of 2024, there's going to be an application process open for more Accelerate communities. Georgia's part of that, with brownfields. When I say we have a lot of partners in this program, it's their planning meetings are huge. So the great thing about that is communities are getting introduced to a lot of resources and partners that are going to be able to help them move their goals forward. So Accelerate's a really great program that if you're in the Southern West Virginia counties, so like Nicholas County, where I live, is like one of the more, like, we're the most north of the Southern county. So it's basically like they're over, like Webster is part of the program this year. So kind of think about the state from that portion over. And you'll have our contact information, and that you can, if you're interested, you can reach out and we can talk about what programs fit. BREC that Beth was talking about just a few minutes ago, we didn't come up with this acronym. The Hub does love a good acronym, but BREC is Building Resilient Economies in Cold Communities, and that's in partnership with the National Association of Counties. So right now we only have one community in West Virginia that's working on that. I'm really lucky that my community is one of the communities that got in, and so every now and then I get to go back and work as a community volunteer and on my community team for some things they're working on. And so this whole program, there's no funding with this program. It's coaching support to build an economic revitalization plan, that then hopefully communities can receive funding for. So applications open for that just next week for the second round of BREC. And Beth, remind me, there's going to be.
There are going to be 7 communities nationwide chosen, and the Hub will be coaching 5 of those next year.
So probably 1 or 2 communities will have the opportunity from West Virginia to get to work with BREC, and it's a super cool program. Next is Cultivate. Cultivate is our most entry-level community program. The application for it is going to launch winter 2024, so probably like January-ish. Olivia McConnell, who leads that program, is on maternity leave right now, snuggling a little baby. So we got to wait for Olivia to come back. Then we're going to launch that program. We'll have 2 communities that are a part of Cultivate, and it is an application process. So Cultivate is also, again, a planning program that you do a bunch of mini grants. So Smithers and Montgomery were in Cultivate a couple years ago, and you through Cultivate, you do like 25 mini grant projects that are up to like $2,000 each. So you get a lot of quick, small, visible wins in your community as part of Cultivate. So if you have a community where you're trying to build capacity and figure out how people can work together, that's the whole premise of Cultivate, is building their relationships and bringing people together when, people are working in silos in communities and not talking to each other as much. Cultivate can be a great opportunity for that. The last program that we have up there is our DARE program. Again, we love a good acronym. So it's Downtown Appalachia Revitalizing Recreational Economy. So a funny story, when we did our kickoff for DARE, it's DARRE. Senator Capito sent a video and she called it DARE the whole time. So I had to respond to this. I can really DARE. Could you resend that? But so this is a program directly in partnership with brownfields, woodlands, and partner community capital. And this actually came out of the discussions from DAWG that Beth's going to talk about how we can help communities revitalize downtown buildings. Every community in West Virginia has buildings that are not in use and empty. And so what are the barriers to fixing those buildings? And so we've learned a lot through this program. We've had a couple cool wins. The Hermitage Hotel and Tap House in Petersburg will be probably our biggest win so far. That's a historic hotel that was built in 1841. That was about a $4 million redevelopment project that we were involved in. We have a couple other smaller projects too that are in the works. And actually, we saved a building in Marlington. The owner was gonna tear a building in Marlington down because he didn't think there was a use for it. And Ray Moeller, who loves to save a good building, said, you know, let's just do an assessment. And then it was very quick. And someone said, you know, I'll take it on and redevelop it. So the original owner gave it to another guy. So the Peacock building in Marlington lives another day because of the DARE program. So with this program, we bring soft costs to help people understand what they're getting into with the building. So that might be engineering or architecture analysis. It might be a pro forma for the building, figure out, you know, what can this building be, like what are the costs, historic tax credits, those are tough, and we've been able to work with people on that. So we don't have money for construction, but our resources can help them get money for construction. So this round of DARE is in 8 Monforest town communities, and it was funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission. It ends next September, and we're discussing, you know, what a future round of this program might look like. So the 3 opportunities you guys have to get involved are Accelerate, Breath, and Cultivate, with those application periods coming up. And then I'm going to turn it back to Beth to talk about the systems aspect of this value.
So as Stacey mentioned, DARE sprung about as a result of conversations and in DAWG. And when I first took this job, I loved that it was DAWG, and I felt like I could really say it with that AW very pronounced, but most people don't. But anyway, it stands for Downtown Appalachia Working Group, and that's a group of practitioners that convene and get together, practitioners and thought partners, to talk about downtown redevelopment work and needs and what's happening in different parts of the state. We're getting ready to get together in Charlestown at the end of this month. And DAWG has a policy group that is one of its sub-teams, or I forget, priority area working groups, I think we call them. But one of its sub-teams is a policy group, and that group actually is also the Community Collaborative Networks policy group. So we have a policy group. We realized there was a lot of overlap there, and we have a lot of the same people at the table in both CCN and DAWG. And Brian Phillips, who is here, actually convenes that team for us and reports back to DAWG and CCN about sort of what's happening and going on there. And then with our policy work, we engage state, regional, federal partners. Brian is on the road a lot, having conversations and talking to a lot of people, and also working on a white paper about federal barriers for rural communities to access federal funds. Again, thinking back to the value of the fact that residents are subject matter experts. So our policy work is like founded in that idea that we want to hear from communities about what the barriers are. And then our communications work at the Hub is very storytelling based. We want to hear the community voice, the diverse voices from the communities, and we want to elevate that. We believe there are positive stories to be told in West Virginia, stories of hope and resilience, and we want to elevate those stories. We want to elevate the community voice and the community subject matter experts that are in the communities. And we dedicate time and energy, and we have an incredible communications associate, Jorge, who does that work. And I don't have nearly as many deadlines as Stacey has. So I'm like, so this is our, you know, if you're interested in being involved in that conversation though, I will leave my business card here, and I would love to hear from, like, if you want to talk to Brian about policy stuff, if you want to talk, if you're a downtown redevelopment practitioner and you are interested in possibly joining DAWG and joining that conversation. DAWG does 2 virtual meetings a year and 2 in-person meetings. So it's not a huge list, and you could, and we co-facilitate the Hub and Northern Brownfield Assistance Center. Carrie Staten and I convene that, and so they're our partner with that. Well, we have a lot of partners with that. We have a lot of other people in the room, but we're the ones that sort of just make sure everybody has food and an agenda to talk about in the room. So I'll leave my card and Stacey will leave her card. And if you want to be involved or engaged as a thought partner in that process,
or, a great story from a community that you think the hub might be interested in, please let me know, reach out to me after this is done.
Yeah, we love to tell stories, so if you, have that opportunity to share a story, because who doesn't love to hear a good story about a West Virginian doing something awesome in their community? So that's a fun part. And then we should also just mention briefly, we do have, as part of our narrative change, a redefined video series that was originally part of the grant with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to basically change the story in communities. And so we have, I think, 4 videos, and we're working on a couple more. And so those are on our website. They're really cool. When they came out last year, there was a whole PBS special with the first 3, and we work with JJN Media, so they're fun videos that really tell an in-depth story about, the change happening in West Virginia. So that's good for some, when you're having a bad day, you can go watch one of those videos and be like, oh, yeah, so I can do this now. Yeah, so our next value we're going to talk about is we collaborate. So we don't, this is not a tongue-in-cheek, oh, we collaborate. We really do collaborate with people. And so that's with communities, community leaders, and partners. So I know I asked this before, but I have so many people. So raise your hand if you've ever worked with the Hub and community program, been one of our partners, through any of our coaching programs, and who's worked with the Hub in some capacity. All right, so about half the room. So that's good. So yeah, that's a good example of our collaboration. But everything we do is in partnership. We don't go it alone. So I often say to my community, I'm not an expert on much of anything, but I can connect you with the experts and we'll collaborate with them. So I don't know how to redevelop a building, but I know Ray Moeller does. So, we'll work with him. I don't know how to do design charrette, but I know Peter Butler's students do, so we can work with them. So we just really believe that in everything we do, we have to collaborate and continue to invite new people to the table and build new partnerships. And the building new partnerships, over the last year, we just have continued to grow the number of partners and partnerships that we have. And so it's super exciting for our communities because we're constantly coming up with new resources and giving people new opportunities to collaborate with us. And so, yeah, so we live this value in a couple different ways. And one of that is that we don't go it alone. We're always working with others and their contributions. So one of the programs I lead is HubCAP, and this round of HubCAP, I think I have 16 partners and 5 named partners that are in the grant. And so there's a lot of intentionality behind that. So communities know who they're going to be working with. We always look for the opportunity to work with partners that are working already in those communities. So the Hub doesn't believe in working in silos. We believe in bringing people together and giving everyone that chance to work together. And so one of the other ways we do this, I just wanted to highlight this, is our AmeriCorps Vista program is a great way that we collaborate with folks too. So a lot of people maybe don't realize that you can host a Vista through the Hub for your organization or your community. So we have a Vista program, and our site coordinator, Aaron Sussman, is absolutely amazing. Look at all the Hub people shaking their heads because listen, y'all might think Stephanie Tyree runs the Hub. Really, it's Aaron. We would all fall apart without Aaron in a second, right guys? So Erin is great for our Vista work. She goes above and beyond to help people get Vistas in communities. And so sometimes that's through Hub programs. Lisa hosted a Vista and it comes through the Hub. So sometimes it's through one of our programs. Sometimes it's just the opportunity for communities to be an external site. So for example, New River Gorge Regional Development Authority is a partner we work with a lot. There's a couple of those folks floating around at this conference, Andy and Amy. They have an opening right now for a pattern Vista coordinator. And so that initiative is around the growing outdoor industry in the New River Gorge, and recognizing that Asheville, North Carolina, which is an outdoor center, there's a lot of outdoor goods that you purchase that are produced in the Asheville area, perception kayaks, there's a bag. So anyway, this pattern vista is gonna be looking at manufacturing opportunities in the outdoor industry to bring things to West Virginia. So that's a cool opportunity that, came about for NRGRDA, but any organization or city, you have to be a nonprofit or a municipality to host a vista, but we can work with you to do that. And vistas are an affordable way to build capacity or grow the capacity in an organization or community over a short period of time, and then develop what that sustainability model is gonna look like. I'm gonna let the partnerships coordinator talk about how we collaborate too.
All right, so I think this, yeah, we're good. So, the hub, like when I think about partnership and I think about what it means to be a good partner, listening, communicating clearly, being willing to dive in and do the work, and some of the roles that we play. So for collaboration, we partner. We're always partnering, we're always reaching out. Just this week, I had 2 meetings with new potential partners on a proposal. You have to know your values, and you have to be willing to dig into those values, and you have to make sure that your partners share the portion of the values that are intrinsic to the work that needs to be done. So, I mean, my title, the fact that I exist at the hub is a lived value and a demonstration of the fact that the hub is willing to dive into collaboration, if they're willing to have a partnerships coordinator who spends time just trying to build our partnership network. And so that role involves convening, facilitating, listening, connecting, translating, interpreting, helping people understand where they might find additional resources, and being willing to make a connection and keep track of how that connection could, in a strategic way, benefit the communities and the partners and the entire community development system that we're working with in West Virginia. So one example of that, like I've already talked about the Downtown Appalachia Working Group, I've already talked about the Community Collaborative Network. I mean, their titles have the fact that they're collaborative in nature in them, but we also host the USDA's Rural Partner Network. There's a lot of words in this. Southern West Virginia Community Network, which I understand is the largest of USDA's rural partner networks. And the hub does this role for that. This is USDA's program, and the hub convenes the communities, and the goal for that RPN network is the Southern West Virginia. There's also one in Central West Virginia, the Pioneer Network, as well. And I don't know exactly all of the communities, picture the middle part of the state. I don't have them all memorized, and the southern part of the state.
And Kaylee Powell's gonna talk about this, I think at 1:30.
Yeah, Kaylee's gonna talk about
Look
this.
for
So I'm
whatever
just
speech or panel Kaylee's on.
Yeah, so I was just gonna touch on the fact that this is another way that our partnership is exemplified in us living this value in this program, helping communities hopefully connect in meaningful ways to federal funding opportunities. So we can go to the next slide. We believe strength creates diversity. We believe diversity creates strength. Maybe the inverse is true. Okay. The hub believes diversity creates strength, and we want to have a diverse collection of voices at the table. And we are diving into this work. I think it's really important. We're learning in this journey. We're not claiming in any way that the hub is an expert in diversity. We're figuring things out. We're welcoming thought partners to the table about this right now. We want voices and community leaders that come to the table. We not just the traditional race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation diversity, but we also want communities to think about what ages they have at the table. Do they have a variety of ages of their community represented? Do they have varying educational levels? Like, what does it mean for that community to be diverse socioeconomically? Like, and are they really getting input from all of the components to say that they have a cross section that represents their community? So We're gonna talk more about this on the next slide.
I'm sorry, I'm a Mac user and this is, yeah. So microphone just doesn't like me. So yeah, so we live this value in a couple different ways. And you know, this is directly from our DEI page and on our website and our DEI page, it talks a lot about our journey and how we got here because I know Beth said it, I want to emphasize again, the hub does not think we're diversity experts or that you should come to us to hear about how we're doing diversity. This is a learning journey for us. We are, you know, really upfront with that we're doing learning internally and then how we exude that for our work externally. But this is on our website there. And it's true, it's at the heart of our work is that, you know, we really do believe that through diversity, we have the opportunity to commit to building power and advancing, you know, real racial equity and other equity in communities. And so, you know, who isn't here, who should be here? This is something our coaching staff in particular says all the time. I mean, every community meeting I host, which is a lot, I say to them, who isn't at the table? Who is not part of this conversation? Because we, you know, if residents are subject matter experts, you have to give everyone the chance and an opportunity to be at the table to be heard. And so, you know, Beth said, this is more than racial diversity. That's certainly at the forefront, but also socioeconomic, education, diversity. So I talked a lot to my communities about, are we holding our meetings at times that are accessible to everyone? Is it in a place everyone feels welcome? Not everyone feels welcome going into City Hall to have a meeting. Not everyone can take time off work to meet at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. So we want to make sure everyone from the mayor to the clerk at the gas station has an equal opportunity to be involved in our programs and our coaching work and what we're doing, because everyone in the community should have a voice and the chance to engage and be involved. The other way that we live this value is, you know, just through our intentionality in our work, making sure that we do have diverse community teams, or trying to do that, or trying to have diverse community teams, but not through tokenization. So we are really careful about that as well. I'm going to let Beth talk a little bit more about some of the other aspects.
The hub has an equity advisory team that we call EAT. I thought that was for some reason kind of funny when I started. Anyway, the equity advisory team is made up comprised of hub and staff members, and we provide feedback to both our executive leadership team and the board about how to make our onboarding process more accessible, how to improve practices at the hub, what learning opportunities and professional development opportunities we would like to see, how we would like to see equity advanced at the hub. And we also, the EAT is sponsoring 2 affinity groups at the hub, our BIPOC affinity group and our LGBTQ affinity group, and the ELT and the board supports that wholeheartedly. And so those are, and we're still working there, and we're in a strategic planning process where we're going to work on how do we engage in this more deeply, work in a more compelling manner, how can we make our DEI work compelling and meaningful, and really hear the stories that we have as internal hub staff, so that we can also be open and amenable to the stories that we hear from our communities. And have those shared experiences. We also have, we're a capacity support partner on Black Policy Day at the Capitol. And in an exciting way, this, I just want to clarify, this is not our event. We help support the planners of this event. However, we are going to be a fiscal sponsor of that this upcoming February, right?
Brian, what's the date?
February 7th.
Mark your calendar, that's how you get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so a couple other ways that we do this is building racial equity trainings and diversity trainings in our hub program. So as I said, I'm coordinating HubCAP. I'm just dishing this, guys. I'm coordinating HubCAP and that, at our first session, we talked about that because we can't expect community teams to do this if we don't give them the tools and resources to do that. And then the last part is prioritizing the diverse staff. So you might recognize our staff is a bit more diverse. When I joined the hub, I think you had to be a 30 to 40-year-old white woman to work at the hub. We let men work there. We have a couple now. We're growing actually. We're gonna have 4 men soon working in the hub because we have a male business started. We also have a more diverse staff in terms of age and ethnicity. So if you have checked out a hub job posting recently, maybe you saw our CFO posting, we haven't been posting quite as much lately, but I just want to share that this is not, this isn't just speak either. So one of the things that we recognize is particularly women and people of color and folks from marginalized groups will not apply for a job unless they feel like they check every box in that job description. How many women have read a job and thought, I only have about 50% of that or 60%, I'm not gonna apply? A couple people shaking their heads. And not to pick on the men, but you guys, statistically, if you have 25%, then you're like, I'm gonna throw my hat into the room. So the hub has this, I'm gonna read this, and this is on our all of our job postings now. We're actively seeking to recruit diverse candidates for this position. We want the hub to represent the diversity found in West Virginia communities accurately. We're seeking candidates that demonstrate diversity of perspective, experience, and culture. We strongly encourage applications from Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as applicants who are historically underrepresented in roles like this. Not sure if you meet all the qualifications? Let us decide. Research shows that women and members of other underrepresented groups tend to not apply to jobs when they think they may not meet every qualification, when in fact they often do. We strongly encourage applications from people who have a passion for this work, even if their professional experience does not align perfectly with the expectations listed. So that gives people the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm gonna try. The other thing that the hub did a couple years ago, when you see any of our job postings, they never have educational requirements anymore, because we recognize that lived experience is valuable, and you may not have a degree that, says you're qualified to do this, but maybe you've done this work and you're qualified to do it. So we've said a lot, passion and dedication to West Virginia is the most important thing that we're looking for in someone at the hub, because we have a lot of professional development experience or opportunities to build in some of those other things. So, the hub also, we work remotely, so that allows us to be more diverse. Before you had to report to Charleston or it was Grafton time, now we have a Buchanan office. But because we work remotely, we have someone that lives in Hinton, we have someone that lives in Moundsville. I live in Richwood, we have Roncevert, we have people spread out all over. Beth's in the middle of nowhere, Manistee. So we have people spread out all over. And because of our executive leadership team believes in a work-life balance, diversity is also that working parents can make it work for us. We actually were having a conversation last night when the people was saying when she joined, she was happy to see that I have my kids' sporting events on my calendar to make sure that I got to go to this. So that's important too when you're recruiting a diverse staff, is making sure people know they can have that family work balance. So these are some of the ways that the hub lives this value. There's a lot more information on our website about our DEI work. We're really proud of how we're stepping into this and know that it's going to be something we continue to grow. I gotta look at my notes to remember who's supposed to talk about this one, Beth.
We both were, but
Okay.
I'll get us started. We
All
commit.
right.
We commit, we dig in, we stay for as long as we're invited to stay. We do the work alongside communities. Our theory of accompaniment is the idea that we don't walk in front of or behind, that we're walking alongside communities, particularly in our coaching. We're walking alongside partners. We like to say we're leading from the middle, especially when we're working with partners. that can make collaboration interesting, especially if you're collaborating with, folks who maybe don't collaborate with that same accompaniment model and the idea of, leading from the middle. I have an analogy about the theory of accompaniment for my own life. When I first heard about the Hub's model of accompaniment, I remember when I was a little girl, I don't know if any of you know what fox hunting is, but my dad was a fox hunter, okay, which is code for old men that drink coffee and stay out all late and hide from their wives. And he took me fox hunting for the first time. By the way, they don't actually hunt the foxes. They listen to the dogs bark along the hillside, and they can tell if they're chasing a deer as opposed to a fox, and it's great fun, I promise. Anyway, so he took me fox hunting, and we were walking up to the little shanty that we had at the top of our ridge out in the middle of nowhere, Mannington, West Virginia. And I was 9 or 10 years old. It was also the first time I drank coffee. Whew. Anyway, I was 9 or 10 years old, hiking up this hillside, really steep to get up to the ridge. Of course, my dad had longer legs, and I was trying to keep up with him. And I was walking, and I got really winded because I was a little 9-year-old kid. And he looked at me and said something my dad has passed on, and to this day, this is my favorite piece of wisdom he ever gave me. He said, "Beth, you never have to get winded in this life. You don't have to get winded. Just take the hill at the pace that you can take it at, and I'll walk with you." So that's how I see our model of accompaniment at the Hub. Communities don't have to get winded. Sure, they're gonna get tired. It's a big hill, and sometimes the hill's even bigger for certain communities. But the Hub wants to walk with those communities at the pace that the community can go at that time. And as they get older, get more fit, their legs get longer, they might be able to take it a little bit more quickly. So.
Yeah, so in our coaching work, we talk a lot about meeting communities where they're at and recognizing that communities come to us with different capacity. And so sometimes we have to slow down or speed up a program to meet them where they're at. And so we're willing to do that. We listen to our community members. And you know, that again, because we're on the ground every month in these communities and, you know, talking with them afterwards, having lunch with folks, you know, it makes it easy for us to develop these relationships and partnerships that are genuine so that communities, you know, trust us and want to work with us. I also think, you know, we do a good job of not over promising and under delivering because no one likes that. So we try to be realistic about what we can bring and what expectations communities should have. And we just keep trying until we get it right. And as Beth said, we stay in communities as long as they'll have us. And that we have several communities who have gone through multiple programs that we offer. And we found that that's where we see the most success in our communities, when we can continue to build their capacity and their growth by inviting them back or giving them opportunities to be part in multiple programs. So Smithers and Montgomery are a great example of this. They went through Cultivate and they had a lot of success in Cultivate. So now they're in HubCAP, which is our, you know, high capacity program, and they have hit the ground running with that. And so when HubCAP's over, you know, we'll see what other opportunities they have, but we continue to work with them. We continue to reach out and talk to people and doing this work. And I hope our communities know that we're only a phone call or an email away. And we are going to follow up and get back to them. And their community success is our success. We love to celebrate their success as much as they do and celebrate them. And so we really are committed to being in this for the long haul. I remember when I first joined the Hub, someone said, "Don't get attached to your communities. It's easier if you just keep a level of separation from them." I don't do that. So I have been to a bridal shower and a wedding from people in my communities. But we're just really committed, and you know, this is emotional work that's, you know, passionate. I wish we turned it off at the end of the night when we go home, but we don't. Sometimes we're still thinking about our communities as we're falling asleep.
I want to wrap us up because we're getting close to time, and I want y'all to have time for questions. We commit because we're willing to experiment, fail, iterate, evaluate, keep looking, especially with our systems work, and keep digging in and not get knocked down when something doesn't work. We consider that a learning experience. You learn as much sometimes from what doesn't work as what does. And with that, I will let Stacy.
Yeah, so we have, again, these are upcoming opportunities. And we did submit this proposal to be uploaded in Sketch, so you can check that out. We can also, email it to you. If you get the hubbub, so if you get our weekly newsletter, all this will be in there. If you want to get our weekly newsletter, or you have questions, you can reach out to me or Beth. We do have some of our colleagues in the room that lead these programs. So we just thought that this was easier. If you have a coaching related question, reach out to me. If you have a systems related question, reach out to Beth, and we'll get that to the correct cover, because there's so many of us that we don't expect you guys to be able to keep track. But we do have a couple minutes for questions. So Nicole hasn't given us the wrap up yet.